looks like we are live. We're loading in. I like to give this a second because, internet speeds vary. But it looks like we've got everybody in here. If you can hear me, if you would at the top of your screen, give me a thumbs up, just a little emoji action to get us started today. Looks like we've got all of our presenters here. And thank you, everyone, for your emojis. Okay, so let's get started on our topic today. I believe we are recording. Let's double check that. We are. Just in case you want to follow up on this later, I want to make sure that file is available for you. So welcome to the GP Year-End and Roundtable. This is where we're going to talk about lots of different topics. I'll get into exactly what those topics are going to be, but as we get started here, just know that this is meant to be a very engaging session, and we're here to support with any sort of question and answers along the way. And so to support those, it's really my pleasure to be speaking with you today. I want to introduce our team. My name is Stephanie McCauley. I'm the CMO and Business Integrator at Crestwood Associates, and I bring over 2 decades of experience in marketing, finance, and operations strategy, specifically helping SMBs build scalable, repeatable business infrastructure. I get really excited about empowering businesses with data-driven solutions and sustainable systems that scale. It's something I've seen transform operations across various industries for over 20 years. Now, on the call today, I've brought a slew of experts to help us cover our topics today. So I'm just going to go in order here. So Colleen Shills, she leads our customer success management team. She's our director of customer success. That team is here to ensure your success at Crestwood and with your ERP solution. So if you're staying on GP, if you're in the decision-making process of moving off of GP, her team is specifically here to help you build your roadmap to ensure your success for today and into the future. So please lean on her team for everything you need. There'll be a slide at the end showing you who all the CSMs, customer success managers, are at Crestwood. Also with us on the call is going to be Dan Milani. Dan leads our team of functional, technical, and support consultants who serve both GP and Business Central. It's a very robust team. His team is here to ensure your confidence in your current environment and your success in a migration to Business Central if that's what you're doing. They also keep us current on things like the recent 2025 Office update that was causing Dynamics GP Word template errors. If you need that blog, we're going to post it into the chat if you're experiencing those issues, by the way. But they like to give us some good content just to help support you and keep your systems running. Also on the call today is Mike Gordon. You may already know this name. Mike is serving behind the scenes in support and in projects, and Mike's going to walk us through the year-end process and payroll updates today. And then also on the call is Jack Blankenship. He's our Microsoft account executive who has received the request from many of you to walk through the overview of the real value in not just Business Central functionality, but how it fully integrates with Microsoft tools, specifically Teams, Outlook, and maybe some of those solutions you're using already today. And finally, last but certainly not least, we are honored to be joined here today by Terry Healy, who's the Senior Escalation Engineer at Microsoft and a highly respected voice in the Dynamics GP community. Terry brings deep real-world insight into GP year-end processes, Microsoft perspectives, and just helping customers to be thinking about the next steps and the areas of their business that are important. So we're going to make great use of our time today, and we're going to start with outlining what we want to achieve in this session, because I like to have clarity before we get started. So my intention today is to help you walk away empowered with very solid knowledge to year-end, and also equipping you in a strong way to complete that, but also to equip you with the options for your GP future. So to do that, we've got 4 big areas that we're tackling. The first thing we're going to talk about is addressing common challenges that you, our GP users, actually submitted to us in a recent client survey. We're going to share the results of your feedback and show you some of the recommendations and feedback we have for you based on those. Then we're going to walk through equipping you with a practical year-end guidance. Mike's going to help us with that. From there, we're going to clarify what's ahead for GP users through Microsoft Insights with Terry. And then finally, we're going to outline future options with Business Central. And that's where Jack's going to take us through that overview that so many of you asked for. So all of these topics are designed specifically for you. And it's our hope that today you're going to find this time incredibly valuable and you're going to walk away with action steps and knowledge that you need for your next steps. Oh, and stay to the end because you are all entered into a raffle to win a pizza party for your team just for being here today. And we're going to announce that winner at the end of today's call. Now, hold on tight because those are a lot of topics to talk about today. The train is leaving the station. We're moving really fast, and we want to help you get the most out of your time today. So let's get moving on to our first topic here. Now, as I mentioned at the very start, interaction is the key. If you have any questions, please hit that chat up at the top. Our team behind the scenes is going to be answering those for you. But if you also have a question and you'd rather ask it by voice, you can just raise your hand to indicate that you would like to ask that question. And so just know this is intended to be interactive, and we want to engage with you along the way and ensure that you walk away with all the answers that you need. All right, so first things first, these are clickable resources that we've built for you. You can download them. You can click right here on the screen, and you should be able to download those for your very own. We have a year-end closing preparation checklist and also a functional comparison and practical options for GP and BC. We're actually going to look at that in just a second here, but we designed these specifically for you. And I think behind the scenes, Greg's going to also plug these into the chat to make sure that if you're not able to click on the screen for any reason, you could still get access to those. All right, moving along. Before we talk about year-end specifically, and I turn this over to Mike, I want to explain this new resource available to you and why this comparison exists. We didn't build this grid in a vacuum. Over the past year, we surveyed our GP clients and we asked a very simple question. Where does GP start to slow you down today? What you're seeing here are the most common pain points we hear across finance, operations, and reporting in general. So from left to right, you've got your common functional area themes that are categorized in that functional area section. These are the themes that when you completed the survey, they showed us what you were having those most maybe core pain points with or concerns with. And so then what we did in the second column is we reflected on those GP challenges based on your feedback. So you're seeing the themes in the functional area and what maybe some of those challenges are. Those are things like manual bank recs, having month-end checklists, heavy month-end checklists, reliance on multiple ISVs, workarounds that creep in overtime. None of this means GP is broken. It just means it's doing exactly what an on-prem system does as businesses grow and expectations change. The next column to the right of that is a column, it's very intentional. If you plan to stay on GP, these are practical, realistic ways that we help clients stabilize, automate, and reduce risk. So it's better reporting layered on GP, tighter controls, more standardized close processes, fewer manual steps. This is about protecting your investment and making year-end and month-end more predictable for you. You can line up a call with your customer success manager and we can work through a plan for you based on these if you're experiencing any of them, and we can help you get your GP environment into tip-top shape. So definitely lean on that team to help have those conversations. Now, in the final column to the right, that one is all about evaluating Business Central. You'll notice it's not just a cloud or a new UI, it has structural differences. Native dimensions instead of COA redesigns, embedded automation instead of bolt-ons, AI-assisted reconciliation, payables and close. We recently did some webinars on those in Business Central. Highly recommend checking those out. You also have tighter integration with Teams, Outlook, Power BI, and Copilot. These are workflow shifts, not just features. So the most important thing I want to say is this. There's no forced decision here. Our role is to meet you where you are. Some of you are staying on GP through 2025 and beyond. Some of you are exploring timing, and some of you are already planning a transition. Our job at Crestwood is to make sure you have the clarity, the support, and the path forward that matches your reality, especially during high-risk periods like year-end. Now, this grid is a conversation starter, but it's not a verdict. The team is here to support you on either side of it, however you're going. It's my hope that you'll find this a very useful resource and a tool to generate more conversation to get you to the next steps of where you're going with your business, with your efficiency and processes, your security, and your compliance. So that said, let's jump into year-end with Mike. Let's get into the details of that. He's going to go through a few slides, and then we're going to turn it off to Terry, who's going to give us some Microsoft insights, and then Jack's going to go through that great overview of Business Central. So Mike, I will let you take over the screen here, and if you have any questions along the way, I'll be in the chat ready to answer them for everybody. And Mike will unmute in just a second, everyone.
All right.
There we go.
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. And it's that time of year again where we're going to talk about year-end process. So our agenda is pretty much we're going to briefly show a slide and talk about the GP product life cycle, and then some ISV news, talk about year-end closing preparation and the sequence, which is pretty much that you would do sales order, purchase order, inventories, receivables, payables, fixed asset, general ledger, and then payroll. And we will go through some of this. As Stephanie said, we're going to be kind of moving fast, but this is the life cycle right now of GP. So you can see at the end of 2029 here, there will be no more new feature or update releases. There will be security updates into 2031. Just wanted to mention that. Most people are aware of that by now. And updates. So you should all get this deck sent by us. These underlined areas are actually hyperlinks to other areas. So this has the life cycle as well as the Dynamics GP October 25 feature blog series, which Terry does. So I just wanted you to be aware there's a lot of resources out there. And then as far as ISVs, GP in October, Microsoft released GP 18.8. And then there's a hyperlink to PopDoc had released something in April. And then a McCorma build as well. And just to note that Rockdin is again increasing $10 per perpetual user in January, as everything seems to keep going up. The good news is the forms really have not changed. There's no form changes at all. And there's some links out here to other areas. Fixed assets, there was, and there usually is, the depreciation allowance, but that changed. So you should be aware of that. And actually, I may as well talk about it now. We might have something on it later. But Microsoft, with the latest release, there's actually a table for the fixed assets that stores that information now. Makes it a little easier for you to update and not necessarily just wait for the year-end update. And then a couple of other things. There's 18.8, as I said, was released. So we have new features. And then there's a blog series schedule, which is great if you've never been out there. It walks through the features on it. And then there's the US year-end update, which links you back to Microsoft Learn. And then 1099 filing dates. January 31st, 2026. Paper filing is due by February 28th. E-filing by March 31st. So most of this is standard dates, but they're updated if you had last year's information. And then this just talks a little bit about 1099 NEC that'll print with boxes unless you're like earlier than 18.4. And then there's also a link to green shades out here. Then as far as year-end closing, right? So you want to plan and schedule, evaluate your procedures and future needs. So obviously all of this is timing and date sensitive. So you can do file maintenance. That's optional. It depends how much data problems you tend to have. And then this just lists what order to run reconcile in. We're going to get into that in a screen or two. This is a little different version of the year-end sequence. This is always the sequence that we follow, obviously with some backups. And there's no actual year-end processing on sales order or purchase order. there are on the other areas, and we'll go through that in a minute. Um, Period end procedures. And we actually have guys that really haven't changed that are probably getting toward 8 years old, but the most of the process is the same. If you let us know if you need a period, like a monthly period end guide or recommendations on year end, we actually have uh, some documentation on that we can get you. And then on the period end procedures, if you are doing any kind of reconciliation or analysis, you'll have that done when you get to year end as just part of your period end. And then purchase order, if you did your period end, uh, right, there's nothing needed. Because you would have done all these reconcile and printing your reports. One feature that I don't see used enough is reconcile the GL. So under financials in the financial series under I believe it's routines, there is reconcile the GL. And you can reconcile AR, AP, bank rec, just as some of the things you can reconcile. And then let's talk about inventory control. So inventory, this is important. You want to post your transactions for the year and reconcile the inventory quantities. And most clients need to schedule that if you have any substantial inventory records, because it can take a while to run those reconciles. You also, at this time of year, and you could do it other times, you could do cycle counts, but at this time of year, a lot of people will do inventory counts, physical count, and post the adjustments. And then the reports that I always look at from an inventory side, for sure, there's a bunch listed here, but stock status, purchase receipts, and then if you have serial or lot, there's some reporting there as well. And then always for any of this, make a backup. So when we're doing a year end update even, or even a close, we back up the SQL databases. If we're doing any kind of update or upgrade or anything like that, we always not only back up the SQL databases, we back up the GP folder. So we have a copy of that. We export any of your customized reports in a package so that we have that as well. And then we also back up your dictionaries. So your reports and form dictionaries. Some of you may have multiple of those, but we always back those up before doing these things. And then in this case, for inventory, we close the inventory fiscal year and then lock down the periods. That's fairly standard. Receivables is date sensitive, and as far as the buckets that you have, so you could print any reports that you print, and it affects the last close. So when you have views in the summaries, it affects the dating of that, right? When you close, and just as when you age. So you may want to look at some of that and ensure accuracy before you move forward. We're going to move on to the other part of receivables. You're going to want to post all the transactions for the year that you have out there. If you have stuck batches or issues, you want to get those resolved before doing this. And then you want to close the year. So calendar year and physical are the same. So usually we select all. And that's meaning if we're closing a physical year, if I'm closing in June, I'm doing this in, right, with a June date, and you want to make sure your GP system date is set to that June date. If it's calendar year, I want to make sure that's what we have. And then, right, that affects our buckets for our periods and things. So then you close the sales series physical periods and close the tax year if you're doing taxes. And then fixed assets. Usually we do payables before that, but I think the slide might be out of order, but I'm gonna take a quick look. No, I just clicked too fast, maybe. Oh, they both say receivables. It looks like. All right, but payables is very similar to receivables. It's the exact same. And then fixed assets is separate. So you're going to want to have done your payables closing first. You're going to want to have had all the transactions entered for the current year and generated your GL posting routine. You want to depreciate through the last day of the current fiscal year or calendar year. You want to print any reports that you have. And then you want to make sure that you have built the calendar for the next year, as well as that the quarters are set up. And always make a backup. And then you perform fixed asset. It has its year-end closing routine as well. So now we've been through most of the modules. So now we come to GL. You're going to want to complete any of your posting and stuff. Any final adjustments that you know you have. And then this is a very important thing that people don't do, which is create a smart list to verify the posting type of each account. And that's easy to do, but what might happen is during the year, someone may add an account that really should be a P&L account and they let it default and it was set as a balance sheet account, or vice versa, the opposite. And what happens if you then close the year, you're rolling over a P&L account into a balance sheet account when it shouldn't roll over and it should close out to retained earnings. So, and then you should normally close the last period of the year. Same thing with most of the modules. File maintenance is optional. You want to verify that you have history set and retained earnings account in the general ledger setup, and then make a copy before you do the close. So lots of backup copies, but that's the safest. And the reason for verifying those settings is I'm going to give you a real world example. One of our clients one year, somebody probably inadvertently was in GL setup and they unchecked the history box. So when it closed, say it was closing 2024, when it closed the year, nothing carried forward because the history was unchecked. Now we were able to reverse it and then do everything again, and we had backups. But that's the reason for checking that, and it can happen. Okay, these are reports that I would normally print, right? Any financial statements, regardless of where you're running them. Detailed trial balances you'd usually want. Make sure you set up the new fiscal year before you close the current one. And then you want to make sure that everything's locked down in all the other modules, right? That in fiscal year you have everything closed. And then if you had anything with budget, right, you do your backup. We're going to go to the next slide. So this is kind of a recap of the year-end processes. And this slide is very useful because what you're going to see here again is year-end closing procedures. And there's a Microsoft Dynamics GP25 year-end blog series schedule, which again, Terry does those and they have great information. And each one of these is a hyperlink. And this is the dates that they were completed. But general ledger, November 11th, so receivables. So it lists pretty much everything out there. Again, even electronic W-2s for payroll has its own fixed assets. Analytical accounting, for those of you that use analytical accounting, it walks through that as well. W-2s and W-3s, there's one for that, and then US payroll, and then Affordable Care Act, the Payroll Services Act 2.0, and then the OBB Act. I think I left out 1B. And then Canadian payroll does not have a link. We will get that for you because I believe it came out late yesterday. Terry can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it came out late yesterday. So these are resources for you if you're trying to do this on your own. If you're, and there's more information here as well. And then if you need our assistance, before I get into payroll, if you need our assistance, these updates can take 2 to 8 hours, depending how involved you are. You would like to let support know so that we can get you scheduled. If you need our help, we have some people that have already done that, and we'll be putting together a schedule. I'm actually meeting with one of my colleagues this afternoon. We'll be splitting some things up and reaching out to clients that we have done previously. But if anyone else wants to do that, feel free. We have done a lot of these. So now, if we were in, I might have gone a little bit more detail if we didn't have so much covered today, but you are getting this deck and all the links are there. And I did tell you the important things. Normally, if we were doing a hour and a half webinar on site in the old days, this is where half our room would have left because we would have said we're going to do payroll year end now. And not everybody has payroll. But we are going to talk about payroll. But as I said, we're moving at a fairly good clip so we can cover everything, and we will have time for questions. So on payroll, you want to verify you've installed the latest 2025 payroll tax updates. So you should do that now. And then it lists an optional step. And then you want to create the year-end file as a test, right? Verify W-2 and 1099 statement information, remove your year-end file, complete all pay runs for 2025, complete all monthly, quarterly for the current year. That's optional, but usually you should do that. Make a backup of your company data labeled pre-year-end wage file. Create the year-end file using payroll year-end close. And then make a backup of your company data labeled post year-end wage file. And then print W-2s and 1099s. That's the normal checklist. And then it talks about printing those, and then the other forms, and then 2026 fiscal periods, you want to have those set up. Close the fiscal periods for the payroll series, update for the 2026 payroll tax tables, and then you can start processing your 2026 payrolls. So at a summary level, that is what you want to do. Very, very important. Make sure that you have your payroll tax tables updated for 2025 if you don't. And then do your last payroll of 2025 before you do the close process, right? You have to do the last payroll of 2025 before you load the 2026 updates. All right. That says 2024 tax table updates. It's really 2025. and the release is in late of 2025. These are all off a tiny bit. I believe the limits are correct, but other than that little typo on the dates, that's good. So some tax filing dates, right? This is just a reminder, January 31st, February 28th, and March 31st. New electronic filing requirements, those are the years they started. This has the latest on the regulations. Most people are electronic filing now. Truncate mask IDs, and it talks about the forms. You never want to truncate your EIN though. And then this is like a self-service checklist for you. And again, we talked about, right, final pay of 2025. If you have any new benefits you're adding, things like that, and then begin your 2026 payrolls. Other items to form on your first pay run. So, right, if you have any employee splits and FTE type stuff, and then these dates, all should say 2025. The limits were all updated because I know I updated them. So these are your maxes. And you notice that retirement catch up 60 to 63, you got to check your eligibility, but these limits are correct. And then, right, other things like group life, educational assistance, dependent care, and then special attention, right, to highly compensated. So everybody that knows payroll knows this stuff, or that does payroll should know this. And then integrity data, you should check with their stuff. And if you're upgrading to 18.8, which we always recommend you upgrade because then you have the latest of everything, ensure you get integrity updated. So you should check with them if you're running them. This is just an ACA credit checklist. And again, a lot of this is in some of the links that we have. And this is more links. And then key points that people forget. So the year-end wage file is held in those two tables listed, UPR 10100 and UPR 10107. The W-2s are in W2, and I'm not going to read all the zeros, but it's in those two files. And then you want to, after you're done with everything, install your payroll tax update, right? Download and do your updates. So I know we went a little quick, but we want you to see other things and make sure that we have interactivity available. So we can, if we have any questions we need to answer, if you want to save them for the end, Stephanie?
Yeah, we're answering them along the way. Great job.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. If there's any other questions that anyone has, please throw them into the chat. I did put up a poll just to see if you would like us to connect with you. If you'll complete that and let us know. I see a good majority of you saying maybe I'll reach out if needed. In that case, just know that we have the online support portal that you can access to submit those, or of course, you can always give us a call. And so now we're going to move into the session here with Terry giving us some updates from Microsoft. So Terry, why don't we get into that part, and I'll keep an eye out for the chat in case we have questions for you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. And, thanks to Crestwood for inviting me today. I really appreciate that. And I love visiting with customers. So it's a lot of fun. Great job, Mike, on all that year-end information. It's just a lot of information, but I think with some of the changes this year, he outlined it very well and got you the most important links that you'll need. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll talk about just some things that Mike kind of mentioned as well. Back in September of 2024, we did announce end of life for Dynamics GP. So then it went back. What's probably new over the last year is we had a lot of feedback from customers and partners about the timing because it was September of 2029. And as we all know, that's not a very good time for us, especially after everything that Mike just talked about. Year end is important. And so it's hard to do cutovers when we're changing to new systems. So what the product group went back and did, as you can see here on the slide, they moved the date to December 31st, 2029. So what that means is you will now get another year-end update that year. You'll get payables form changes. You'll get a payroll tax update for 2030 round one. So it just kind of gives that customer a little bit more. We know timing is going to be key with this. We still have a lot of customers that need to decide. And so, depending how complex you are, we know it's not an easy process, and we want to make sure that our customers feel okay. And so we extended that to 12/31 of 2029, giving you an extra year end in there. And that includes Canadian payroll as well. And as Mike indicated, security updates and hot fixes till April 30th of 2031, which typically we don't release any. We're not anticipating to, but you never know what might happen and comes in those years ahead. The next thing we announced this year as well is around our subscription licensing. If we can go to the next area slide. So subscription licensing, I saw some, hosting on Crestwood's site. Maybe you're on subscription license. And when we announced end of life of GP, the subscription that some customers are on, not all, where you just pay a monthly fee or a yearly fee to be a subscription license and you log into a site to access GP. If you're on that model, it didn't have an end date. So GP would just keep going and going. But what we announced is that there will be an end date for SPLA. So as of April 30th, 2031, if you're on subscription billing, Microsoft will no longer bill you. And so then we're not sure again what happens at the time and how you access GP, but if you still have access to GP and it works, you're not getting billed, you're in license infringement. So basically, we really do have to look at, if you're on the enhancement plan or subscription, GP is ending and you need to move to, what's ahead. And of course, we enforce Business Central and Jack will talk a lot about that. But know that we did put some end dates around subscription licensing. The next slide is about our life cycle, and Mike had it as well. I'm just highlighting those end dates that are really important for us. You can link to this and it's all there for you. And, really targeting that 12/31 of 2029 to, I know a lot of customers are kind of like in that, mode deciding now, but we don't want to wait till the end, and there will be no updates after the 2029 year. So we need to really look at getting into something before that, and we'll cover that more here in our session. If we go to the next slide, what I want to talk about a little bit is bring us into AI. Over the last century, business has probably functioned the same, right? We've maybe fine-tuned our processes a little bit, trimmed some of the things we're doing, made things better, more agile. But over the last few years, business has pretty much been the same. What we're seeing with AI, if we go to the next one, it's really going to change how your business is going to evolve. And, I'm seeing it as Microsoft, of course, we're all in on AI, but just as a support perspective or what I'm doing in my daily job, I'm trying to use it more with my emails, organization. I'm, also we're doing a lot of things with our support staff of creating agents to help them solve things. And so it's just rapidly changing. It's just unreal how fast this is changing. So I think, over the next couple of years, you're really going to see this in your business. And if we go to the next slide, why it's so important. And this was at a conference I was at, and I really thought it was interesting and good for everyone to see how fast these language models are evolving. It took 16 years for us to get into mobile phones and the use of that. Internet, 7 years. What we're seeing with AI is the fastest adoption rate ever within the business and across companies and your employees. So I think if you haven't already, you're really going to see that explode over the next few months. And what that leads us into on the next slide is GP can integrate with some of this, but really Business Central is the key with AI. This is a proven fact that every employee in your organization will use Copilot or ChatGPT, whatever they choose in their business. And also every business process you have will probably be an agent where it's helping you do some of that. So I think that's just a really interesting statistic. And as I talk to customers, I mean, more and more we're hearing them use Copilot, or, hey, Copilot said this, or Copilot helped me with my calendar, just little things they're seeing to help them save some time in their business. And if we look at the next slide, Business Central really is going to be the middle ecosystem of all of this. Yes, Great Plains GP can do some of that, but not what Business Central can do. Business Central is like in the middle, and it integrates to the entire Microsoft ecosystem. I think that's what's key as you also look at other products. They will say, and Jack's going to talk more about this, but they'll say they integrate, and yes, they can integrate, but nothing integrates to this as Microsoft ecosystem and with Business Central at the core. There is some awesome agents already built into Business Central that you can use, and BankRec is one of them. There's just some great things that are going to help you in your business going forward, where you're going to see GP just isn't going to do it as much as you might want to. It is always going to be there, and Crestwood's going to support you with that, but Business Central is going to take you to the next level with all of this integrating ecosystem, and that's what Jack will talk about. If we go to the next slide, we'll get back in a little bit into GP, and I want to talk about the release plan. But just, know going forward, as Crestwood said, we're all here for you, no matter what you choose. And you still have some time, but keep it in the back of your mind that we are going to have to look at if it's Business Central or evaluate another product going forward. But as we continue on, GP is going to continue to have the same release cycle for you. It's important to be on your enhancement plans to stay current, because those always give you discounts for Business Central as well, and allow you to download year-end and the software that you may need to keep Dynamics GP running. So like if we look at, Mike talked about, we just released the October 2025 release that has features, and we always plan to release features for you. Then we released the US year-end, and now in December, we're working on the Canadian year-end. So we're always going to do those releases. And this year, we are going to do a January hotfix of a couple 1099 changes and some other bug fixes. And then we go into March, which is kind of optional, depending on if there's some IRS changes out there. And we typically always do a mid-year. So don't feel that you're not getting any updates or GP is not doing any of this. That's not true. We are going to continue this dedicated release plan for you. And as Mike showed you, all the blogs we do, the feature, they're all there for you. And we're continuing to do that. We're not trying to end any of it or push it out, but we just want to show that some of this new technology is better useful with Business Central versus GP. If we go to the next slide, we talk a little bit about the release. Mike talked about the December year-end is out there now. We did release a little bit later this year because of the government shutdown, and we were waiting on some draft forms, and we didn't want to release if things were going to change. So we did release the first week. Was it last week we released? Where normally we release before Thanksgiving. So we were a little bit late, which makes everyone a little bit more anxious and in a hurry, but just know it's out there. Review the changes, determine. Crestwood can help you with that. and what you need to install this year to move forward with your business. There are, as Mike mentioned, fixed asset changes. There are also some quality reports out there, but not a major year this year, as there could be compared to other years. Then for our Canadian customers, of course, they all need to install the year-end update when that releases due to the tax changes in the code. And we are going to have a January hotfix. We're already coding some things for that. So we will have an optional January hotfix out there for you to install of some changes as well. We go to the next slide. This is, I think Mike had it as well, but the upgrade blog series and the feature blog series, I just want to highlight it out there. And then we have the year-end one because, if we run into any big upgrade issues, we put them on our blogs. So customers and partners don't need to call us, and we try to have all that out there for you and available. So those are 2 links that are really important. The next slide. And Mike had this one linked up in there too, but this is the year-end blog series. I just finished it. I saw Greg put the Canadian one out there that did release yesterday. We're still coding some of that. The tax changes came out for Canadian payroll, so we're working on that to get it released. But the year-end blog series is out there for all modules. And, like Mike said, if we run into a payroll issue, I'm going to put that out there on the year-end blog. We did 2 new blogs this year, specifically around the overtime premium that Mike brought up and the Secure Act, because they're kind of new to us this year. We didn't have any changes in the year-end updates specifically to them. But what my blog covers is some things to help you and how can I track overtime premium in the 2026 year in Dynamics GP. Even though we didn't do anything, it still gives you some tools. I put some free smart lists in there that you can create reports and, determine some of those limits that Mike's was mentioning. So I gave you some free smart lists out there. If you have trouble installing them, I know Crestwood would help as well. So all the blogs and our links to KBs and our processes, everything should be out there and ready for you to go to have a smooth sailing year end. I think that's all of mine. I'm going to turn it over to Jack that's going to talk about Business Central.
Thanks, Terry. As Jack gets himself set up here, I just want to plug in and remind everybody, Jack's going to go do an overview today based on your request, and we're just going to showcase a little bit of what Business Central has to offer, so you've got options. And then just a reminder, Crestwood, we do tailored demos for you. So if you're looking at one of these areas and you think, how's this going to work in my environment? Let's definitely get that set up for you and scheduled so you can see what that would look like. And then also there's a GP assessment we can do to actually look at your current GP environment, see the complexity of your data, and be able to tell you what that move would look like for you. So I'm excited for Jack to get into this, but Terry, thank you. A wealth of knowledge as always and super helpful information. So thanks for your time today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Terry. That was awesome. I got to learn a lot too. So today we're going to talk about, like they said, a little bit of the new Business Central and kind of how it's going to emerge into our modern day ERP. So a little bit we're going to talk about is just unlocking the growth we get with Dynamics 365 and Business Central, some core capabilities and functional overview, how to integrate with 365 and Business Central, which is a lot smoother nowadays, thankfully. Some AI and action co-pilots and agents that are doing a lot of really cool stuff, and some next steps we can take. So we're going to start off with just kind of the nitty gritty of it. Stop me if this sounds really familiar to your company, but a lot of times small businesses will be kind of inhibited by their accounting systems. It makes it really difficult to adjust on the fly to changes because, the processes are manual or inefficient. And a lot of it's just really error prone. It really leads to a lot of frustrated employees or low profit margins, just higher employee turnover. And something that I've really kind of realized is a lot of those people that are going to leave or get turned over are frustrated the most are the ones that kind of started the system in the first place. They're the ones that are kind of your MacGyvers that can do the workaround. So you really can't afford them to leave or retire in the first place. And also at a high level, Business Central just allows you to work very, very fast and grow on your own terms and be very secure, which is really obviously paramount this day and age. I mean, there seems like there's a security threat every which way you look, especially nowadays with all these new systems. So Business Central is going to help you deliver better results, better bottom line results in a lot more secure way. One of the ones we're really going to harp on today is Advanced Plastic. They've been our client for quite a while, and they had a pretty cool kind of success story in that regard. Okay, Business Central and how it supercharges small businesses with AI. So as we all know, Business Central does unify systems and records into a single source of truth for all these businesses. And all these that you're seeing here, they are really important, but at the end of the day, I don't really think there's any business that can thrive without financial and sales management. Doesn't really matter what business you're in, that's just absolutely paramount. And a really big deal about this is it kind of plugs it all into one. And whereas Great Plains, which I've always been a big fan of, but the thing is, it's kind of rooted in your legacy on-prem design. So when you're doing ongoing maintenance or manual upgrades, that's just going to take you time, take away from kind of your rock stars at the end of the day and kind of having to fix it. So really, it's more future-proof than GP, and it makes sense just because that's what Microsoft is investing most of their money in. It's kind of where they're going. So with that being kind of in the back of your mind, I mean, it just kind of makes sense that they have all this Microsoft AI out of the box, and we're going to spend a lot more time discussing that as well. So Advanced Plastics, really interesting case here. I don't know how familiar all y'all are with it, or really plastic manufacturing as a whole. It's a pretty nuanced system, but they were on GP since 07, and they were kind of, as they were growing, and man, were they growing. They just had to work through a lot of workarounds. It was hard to scale at the right time. And as people are being brought in, it was almost like trying to teach them an old song and dance, where really they just need this one that's here and ready to rock and roll now. So we were able to migrate them to Dynamics pretty quickly, but we really phased it out. We kind of did our best to do their financials first to improve the data access, because that was what's kind of their biggest hindrance we saw. And we do this with every client, but we really tailor it around them first. We're like any good relationship, I think we're 80% listening, 20% talking. So we want you guys to kind of be the drivers in that regard. And with it, I mean, they were able to have really good reporting. One of my favorite aspects of Business Central is the unlimited user access, because I mean, you want your best people and the people that really need to know what's going on to be able to have input and not have to be through a paywall or really anything that just slows you down more. So we really carefully phased it. Like I said, we kind of went tier to tier on the pain point. So warehousing, scheduling, finances, and operations were all kind of our key indicators of what we need to fix first. So in that regard, I mean, they were able to eliminate all those data silos. And what was most important for them was getting that real-time visibility into finance and operations. And most importantly, as they were growing, just making their business more scalable for this future. All right, so for a minute, we're going to talk about kind of just how Business Central enables you to adapt faster. I know we kind of harped on it recently, but security, flexibility, and scalability are kind of the three of the four big sort of thresholds or big keystones to Business Central. So as Central scales to support you, you can ensure you remain agile, you can adjust quickly. Business Central is also that first comprehensive business management solution to use Copilot and streamline workflows. So you're really never left out of the loop or out of the question, especially with our new AI insights. So that's just been something that, at least on my end, has helped me a ton. And then quickly, I'm going to harp on a couple of these. As you can see, it's a pretty busy slide, but we're going to go a little deeper in some process flows that make Business Central work really well. So I think one of the best strengths is depth and breadth of functionality. So you can increase financial visibility, so you can gain total control of your financial data, making it to where you can have not only better decisions, but come to them a lot quicker. And you can boost sales and customer service, because I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to streamline all this to get to a better end for your client. So by finishing projects on time and on your budget, you can optimize resource allocation, really just improve team productivity. So with Business Central connected to Outlook, actually, I'm going to let Dan hop in here real quick. Dan, take it away.
Sorry about that, Jack. I was trying to get the hand raised. Can we jump back one slide? I just want to make a quick couple of call outs. All right. As you can see on the screen, there's a number of these rainbow Copilot logos here next to some of these items. There's a couple of key things about Business Central to be aware of. One, it's fully online, and continually being updated. Now, these Copilot agents that you're seeing here really didn't exist a year or two ago. They're being added with every release. Another thing that I want to address is that you're used to your system needing to be upgraded periodically. Once you make that migration to Business Central, those upgrades disappear. It's a twice a year rollout that Microsoft handles. All we have to do for you is take a look at any of your customizations or ISVs and very quickly resolve any conflicts in the code. And that's all because of what's called an extension layer. And what the extension layer is a layer on top of the base code. And in traditional development, what we would do prior to Business Central is either in GP or in Dynamics Nav, which was Business Central's predecessor, is we would actually write code right in the code base. So every time you have to do an upgrade, we have to remerge that code to the upgraded version. With the extension layer, we don't touch the base code. So that update can roll in underneath. And I'm being very careful to use the term update over upgrade, because that's really what it is. It's twice a year. You get the latest feature sets. Microsoft is pushing more of these AI and Copilot agents. So you really get the benefit as it comes out with a much lowered cost of ownership over having to upgrade every year or two. Sorry, Jack. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, thank you. That was awesome. I just learned a lot myself, so I really appreciate it. So moving on after that wonderful insight, I just wanted to really mention real quick some of my other favorite things. So Business Central with Outlook is really, really cool, especially if you're like me or you're in sales or you're trying to do stuff from quote to cash, which we know is always really, really important with a deal cycle or timeline. So, I mean, it lets you manage everything in terms of inquiries to service requests, all that stuff in the sales cycle through Outlook. So you don't have to go back and forth or try to look for, another payment history or, maybe there was a discount we had. So, I mean, we all understand because we all use email. At least I would hope so. I would assume so. So, I mean, it really makes it to where instead of going back and forth between applications, there's real-time data with Business Central from your Outlook. So it enables you to see, sales and purchase history right there. So, I mean, it really just makes you make a lot quicker decisions and have your customers' needs solved a lot more effectively. And another one with Excel. So Excel, I once had explained to me, we all know what it is, but I wasn't the biggest fan of it in college because I'm not really a numbers guy. But the truth is Excel is where you can transform raw data into insights that drive decisions and really dictate where your business is going. So we tried our best to make it as easy as possible for Business Central to work directly into Excel. So you can capture snapshots of data, share them for review, and really just save time by bulk updating records into Excel and uploading them into Business Central with just a couple clicks. This has been really, really helpful because unless you're an Excel wizard, you can know that just it can be a really, really big box of just stuff you don't really understand, at least with me. So it's helped me a lot. So, I mean, really in all essence, we're trying to get your data to be ultra accessible while also being as accurate as it can possibly be. And lastly, it also obviously links with Teams. So right at data at the right time is obviously paramount. We don't want anybody going back and forth between different dashboards. It's really just a productivity killer. We have a stat here. It was saying that we lose about 9% of our year to workarounds or really just inefficiencies caused by app switching. A great comparison I've always heard is when you're in standstill traffic, but all the lights are green. You're just like, what's going on? This really isn't fair for me. I'm trying to get home to dinner. Microsoft Teams is also kind of just huge for our hub of collaboration. It obviously brings everyone together. It brings your processes together. And it's especially as we're all going to kind of this hybrid workforce. I mean, we've never really had a bigger need for this than now. So I think Microsoft did a really, really good job with trying to make this as applicable as possible to even the simplest of maybe not most tech savvy folks. Another thing I really, really like about Business Central is being able to access licenses with no additional cost. So the big thing I think that's really important here is the read-only access that I'm sure all you're familiar with. But so let's say you have a massive decision to make and you just really need to get as many hands on or eyes on it as possible. and you need your best data, your most recent data to be able to work with these, but you don't have to buy another license, because I mean, that'd just be, you're doing all this work already. So having the read-only access and being able to share these licenses within your team has been massive for Crestwood especially, but I can imagine really anyone who ever's been lucky enough to use Business Central. So another case study we're going to look at really quick is a very old company, Executive Clubs of Chicago, and they were also in a pretty old version of Great Plains, but they're able to moderate or migrate to Business Central on a cloud ERP. So we really kind of similar to the advanced plastic ones, we kind of focused on what they needed the most in terms of enhanced financial reporting, access to real-time data and actionable reports, which led to them having much better decision making. It really kind of brought them into the 21st century. So having to reduce IT intervention and just really simplify their cloud environment was huge for them. And what was really kind of the end goal, and it worked out awesome, was the accounting team gained stronger and more flexible financial reporting, which I think we all need. So now we're going to get on everybody's favorite subject, kind of the word of the year, I'd say, is AI. But Microsoft has been lurking at this and kind of in the shadows for, I'd say, almost 10 years now, working for responsible AI. And not only that, they kind of have some practices here that really make sure your data is your data. So it's not our data, it's your own to control. We don't want to leverage it. We don't want to monetize it. Also, something people might not think about, but it is pretty important, especially this day and age, is our data or your data is not used to train our foundational AI or models without your permission. So don't worry about any other body outside your organization kind of getting into that. And lastly, your data and AI models are your entire organizations. They're protected at every step by the same kind of security that runs your Business Central. So all those compliance and security controls you have in your industry will be the same for your AI. And that's a Microsoft commitment. It's binding. We really are trying to redefine the way the work gets done as securely as possible. So here is kind of a fun little image of sort of all the complementary capabilities of our AI and sort of how they're based and layered. So as you can see here, our basic ones, as you get out further with agents, and then, you know, with all our other additions of Extended Copilot and Azure. I'm going to speak about those real quick in depth. So we have a couple tools that are engineered for this. So some are very simple, like Guide, which teaches a new user how to, you know, it's simple, just navigate an ERP system, or there are some that are a little more nuanced, like a bank account reconciliation, that are very powerful tools. It helps you save time, improve accuracy, really just deliver faster results overall. And analyzing and suggesting it, really, the more you work it, the smarter it can kind of become. So it's really been super helpful for us. So at a high level, Copilot and Business Central makes accessing dashboards and data very easy, and it makes it just to where you can take advantage of these as simple as possible, even if you're not the most data driven, or even if you don't know how to write code. It's really just so many capabilities that's to where you can access it and just make it work for you, which is kind of our end goal. You can also chat with Copilot. Obviously, it uses this thing called natural language, which I think is going to probably just keep growing, but it really lets your business find data for your company in Business Central, and it gives you guided, kind of tailored step-by-step guidance for each task, which has always been really good for me, just because I'm not like I said, I'm not the most tech savvy, so it's just been really good. And it helps you understand the purpose and reasoning behind these fields, because a lot of times when you look at these ERP systems, they might be really scattered. It's like, what am I looking at here? Well, here you can kind of sit down and it'll take you step by step, which has been really helpful. All right, bank reconciliation, like we spoke about earlier. This data makes it to where activities like this are a breeze. I mean, Copilot for Business Central organizes it, and you can cut out significant time for this. And I know Mike really knows this a lot more than me, so I'm going to let him kind of take over on this regard.
All right, I'm just going to share. So for people that use BankRec on GP, you're well aware of, right? Even though you can search a range and clear a range, it's still more manual. And even if you have electronic BankRec, it's so sensitive to the date range that it doesn't always match up right. Natively, Business Central, and it struck me as that, it had one column on the left, which was like the bank, and a column on the right, that's the GL. and you could do some matching with that, and it did a much better job. It just does a better job than GP. There still can be things unmatched, like if you have a service charge from a bank that wouldn't have hit and been in your GL yet, you might have to add something like that. But then they came along and they introduced Copilot. And with a couple of mouse clicks, it does a good portion of it. Nothing's 100% yet, but it's getting there and it's improving. And right, you still may have the same problem with the service fee, but Copilot just makes it so much easier. And the amount of time savings is large, right? It's not that GP doesn't work, because it does, but it really struck me as learning both systems and knowing both systems, how much difference Copilot makes and how fast it was. And then were you going over Power BI too, Jack?
I was
Refresh my memory.
not, so you're free to take that one
Okay.
if you want.
So I'm just going to talk about Power BI. Again, it's part of the Microsoft stack, but as long as I'm doing a little comparison here, Smart List is great. Some of the reporting you can do, even SSRS, but you might need a little more skilled help with that, depending what it is. And what I saw with one of our clients that was a GP client that moved to Business Central, they really needed a lot of data out of their sales, and they needed it sliced so many different ways. We were able to put together in a reasonable time frame a Power BI report for them that gives them critical information, multiple different views and ways. All they have to do is click around and everything changes, and it gives decision makers the ability to make decisions at their fingertips. And that it's not that Power BI can't be used with GP. It can, but it's more, as we said, that whole Microsoft ecosystem, as Terry said, is going right. Business Central's the core. It just amazes me in how much data, right, you can do. It took some time, and it took some time to get the client, but I think this was put together, and I could be wrong, but it was about 40 hours. And now I think they've changed it a bunch of times since then, because now they want more, that they have all this. But it's just really big. We live in very interesting economic times. And depending on your business, this data is critical. And the faster you have it and the easier it is to obtain it, it lets decision makers have information at their fingertips quicker. And my background is I was in public accounting for 15 years, and I've been doing this for well over 20 now. And I could tell you that information timely is critical for businesses. And the Copilot and Power BI and the whole Microsoft stack, what I'm seeing is it's going to change business a lot, as Terry said. And I don't know that it's necessarily going to get rid of jobs. I think it's going to change jobs. I think C-level and up decision makers are going to need to do less manual input or moving around for reporting. They're going to be able to do much more analysis and just pop around in, like that BI report I was just talking about. And that is where technology is going. And that is where I think business is going. And I think it's only going to improve. Like Dan said a couple of years ago, these co-pilots weren't there. And it's like, you feel like every time Microsoft does a release, what's this? What did they put in here now? And it's really great to see. So it's just something that if you are staying on GP, sorry, and you need different reporting, possibly Power BI is something to look at, but it's just so much easier. And then some of this data you just have by clicking around in BC, whereas we know, other than Smart List, GP canned reports give you great data, but they don't format nicely into Excel or anything else. So that's all I wanted to say. There were just a couple of examples that I've seen with clients and what I see in general. And like I said, these are challenging economic times. There's a lot that changes. And thanks, Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mike. So home stretch here, gang. We're gonna get through this one real quick. This is another kind of just way to show you guys how at the end of the day, we're really just trying to get this to where it's accessible and specific as possible. So I know we went over these a little bit, and you can click on the videos on your own if you want. They're kind of hard to see on here, so I'm not gonna. But it really talks about how even in Outlook, you can make a new customer profile from the info in an inbound email. You can draft a purchase order and check inventory from a calls transcript in Teams. And again, kind of the powerhouse of it all to me is the Excel feature. So any Business Central field can directly go into Excel without the middleware, and you can get the deep financial analysis you come to know just through Copilot. And this next slide will go. There we go. And we kind of like to take it a step further here with agents. I kind of jokingly call them elves because they are very autonomous. Once you train them, they'll kind of take over and make it really, really easy to activate and navigate as a whole. And there's different kind of levels to it. I've always thought it was a great idea that if you have someone dealing with a problem, instead of creating, a whole other workaround, they just create their own agent to fix it in the first place. So that's one of the coolest parts of Business Central to me. And my work with this AI is that you're not really limited to what Microsoft is creating. There's really additional agent builders. So anyone can start to build agents, like regardless of your skill level, like even folks like me that really don't know much about code. So in terms of that, the individuals who are really doing the work can be the ones empowered to create the autonomous workflows as opposed to, creating another workaround, another MacGyver tool.
That's it for you, Jack. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So, Jack's session is a reminder to me of just some work that we've been doing that's interesting and where Microsoft is going. But I'm reminded that in general, when you think about business, the most expensive expense to a business is going to be labor. And then that labor kind of breaks down into some different areas. When you think about labor, you want to realize that rework often becomes a very expensive part of what you're paying for. And so the work that Microsoft is doing with the changes with Business Central, adding in agents, using Copilot in different ways, all of that is designed to create more efficiency for you, less rework, and save you in revenue along the way. So highly, recommend checking into that. We have a poll here. If you, depending on where you are with, if you're staying on GP or if you are considering a move or if you want to make a move fast, if you would fill out this poll for us, our team is going to be working behind the scenes to make sure to get you what you need. If you are just sort of exploring, we can put together that tailored demo for you, assess your data in your environment, and just see what would it take for you to move to a new system and when does it make sense for your business to do that. We are going to act as change agents for you, and we're also going to act as your support. So depending on what you need for GP, we're going to make sure that your environment is up to speed and you're getting everything you need. And if you're ready to make a move or you're just exploring that move, we're going to move along with you to help you make the right decisions along the way. Now, we do have a BC newsletter. We are continuously uploading information, blogs, webinars about what's happening in Business Central. And so if you're interested in reviewing any of those, please visit the website, or of course, we can send that information in the upcoming GP newsletter as well. And so definitely check your emails and we'll make sure that we get that information to you. So when you anticipate making that change, oh, go ahead, Dan. I see you've got your hand raised. I think you want to add a couple notes here.
I did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. I just wanted to bring up, your CSMs are going to be reaching out to you, or probably already have for a good chunk of you. I want to make sure we understand that, hey, yes, we want to get sales. There's no question about that. We're in business. But more than that, we want to ensure that everybody who's looking to migrate is migrated in that time window that that Terry was speaking about earlier. So when we're reaching out to you, like I see a few of you in here in the next 12 months. Please don't see that as a pressure tactic or anything like that. We're just looking to get these scheduled so we can make sure everybody's taken care of.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. That's a great point. We're on your timeline. We want to help you make the right decision for your business, not the right decision for Microsoft. So that's where we're going to direct ourselves with you. Okay, so as we sort of wrap up things here, let me take control of this screen. Mike, you want to add something in there before I keep going?
I do. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that, just because we're giving you information and we want the best for your business, we want you to grow. Don't mistake that for GP going away or that Crestwood isn't all in on GP. Our two most senior people are myself and Brandon. Neither one of us are going anywhere, and we know GP well. There's resources. If we needed something from Microsoft, we were fortunate enough to have Terry here, and Terry's available. GP is not going away. We're not trying to shove anybody off of anything. But as I said, the economy, it's interesting times. It's very competitive. I don't see that changing. It's going to stay that way. So we want what's best for your business, and we can't determine that timeline. We can give you all the information. We can show you all these things and where things are headed. We're just trying to educate you. But I just don't want anyone coming away thinking that GP doesn't work or it's going away. We can do a lot of things in GP where we start getting into, as I talked about, Power BI. And if you have quick hits, that's great. But how much money do you want to put in a system that 4 years from now stops having releases? That doesn't even mean we'll stop supporting it. We've always supported all of our clients, no matter what version they're on. And that's all I wanted to just make sure that it's really in your best interest that we put this together. We want your businesses to grow and do well. That's all I had, Steph.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks. Yep. So, all right, we've been on a journey today. We have talked about the GP pain points that everybody submitted on those surveys, and we put together that comparison guide for you to take back and maybe assess. Then we talked about year end and payroll and what to do there. Mike did a great job stepping us through that. There's a ton of resources in here for you today. Then Terry gave us that quick update on Microsoft, and Jack took us through the Business Central overview. So we've been through a lot of information. We have 3 more slides to go. The first one being congratulations to our pizza winner, Dylan S. That's a Julie. Julie is on our team. That's one of her clients. We try to keep client information private. But Dylan has won a pizza party for the team, and so we will be reaching out to award that here pretty soon. And that was for just completing our surveys and participating with us. So thanks for that. And then just a reminder here too, your feedback matters. So if you would please, complete the survey, give us your feedback after today. Let us know what other information you would like to hear more about. We're actually putting together our marketing plan for next year. We're actually working on Q1 right now. And so any topics, if you would like us to come back and bring Mike to talk about some topics or have Dan, discuss different topics, we're happy to do that. And we'll also have an entire show of Business Central happening next year too. And so we'll keep you up to date on those events, those webinars, the blogs, and the content that are coming out so you can stay in the know. And then you'll also find we stay updated on LinkedIn very consistently. And so you can join our LinkedIn client community. And this is where we get pretty active every day, all the time. So just know that that's a resource for you. And then speaking of resources, if you do not know your customer success manager, then reach out to Colleen and let's make sure you get that introduction. It could be that you're new to your role, or maybe there's been a shift in the company. So let's make sure that we're making those connections for you. This is our team of customer success managers for our GP practice. And so we would be happy to have any sort of conversation with you that's appropriate. And these are your resources to help you roadmap your future. And then Mike has one more hand raised here. So hop in, Mike, what do you have?
Sorry, I just noticed Julie's email address is not correct. It should be jkunka, Kunka.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Yep, we will make sure to update in the final slide that goes out too, just so everybody has that. All right, so thank you everybody for attending today. Thank you to all the presenters for being here and just for sharing their wealth of knowledge. We will send out the resources after today's session, and then we'll stay engaged over the next several weeks as changes happen in the Microsoft ecosystem. And so make sure you're opening those newsletters and staying engaged, and reach out with any questions along the way. Thank you all so much. And, if we don't talk before now and end of year, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and best of luck as you wrap up a really solid 2025 and start to, lean in on 2026. Thank you all so much.